This is Rick Rule for Rule Investment Media, sponsors of the Boca Raton Natural Resources Investment Forum. I'm delighted today to interview Mr. Sean Wade, CEO of Power Metal Resources in London. Sean, first of all, thank you for subjecting yourself to this interview and also for being a sponsor of our Natural Resources Investment Symposium in Boca Raton.
Thank you very much, Rick. It's great to be with you.
Power Metal Resources, I would describe, correct me if I'm wrong, as a sort of a newfangled mining merchant bank. Tell me, first of all, whether or not you think I'm right in that assessment, and tell me, too, about the team that you've assembled for this mining merchant banking activity.
Well, that's absolutely right, Rick. I mean, that's absolutely how we see the model. We are a custodian of investors' capital, and what we seek to do is to expand our balance sheet by successfully investing that capital in typically early stage mining projects, although that's not exclusive. I have a great team of exploration geologists. I've got a great board with a lot of relevant experience, both in geology and also in finance. And I myself have a background in financial markets. I started life as a broker at Cazenove many years ago in the early 1990s. And over the last 10, 12 years or so, I've been in various roles within the mining sector, typically focusing on financing and business development. So I think we've got the right team in place, and I think the business model you describe is exactly what we're trying to achieve.
Long-term listeners and former clients of mine may understand my fondness for merchant banking, going back to Ned Goodman's rest in peace, wonderful effort, Dundee Bancorp, which, if my memory serves me correctly, went from 42 cents to $40 over 10 years. If you could describe something about the mining merchant banking business and talk, too, a little bit about London's role in mining finance and London's role as the sort of epicenter of mining merchant banking.
Well, that's right. I mean, London is an extremely well-established jurisdiction, as you know, for mining companies. I mean, capital is hard to come by, whether you're listed in London, Toronto, or Australia. So, it's very important to have a clear direction and a clear model, but also, obviously, to have the positive backdrop of commodity markets. And I think, most of your listeners will know that over the last 2 years, in particular, that has been quite tough. It's been hard to get capital, and a lot of the major commodities that we cover, have been in the doldrums to a certain extent. So, we need good markets. We need both vibrant capital markets, and we also need to have the right backdrop for investors. So, I think we're very positive on how the landscape is currently. And I think we've got a fantastic opportunity to realize value for investors in the current market. So I also think that the AIM market is well established. We have it allows for a great set of advisors, the nominated advisor principle, and that's obviously a great help to us. And I think we are listed in the right place, and with the backdrop that I mentioned, I think we're in a good position to make money for people.
If you could give us an overview of the assets that you have in the company so far, and talk about the focused asset, which, as I understand it, is a group of uranium assets in Canada. I mean, it would appear, given your name Power Metals, that you'd like to be active across the whole electrification metals landscape. So if you could talk about what you've done so far, and talk to me about the asset that we talked about on the phone the other day that you were excited about.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, Power Metal, as you say, does strongly speak to the decarbonisation trend, which I think we're all agreed on, and is a major macro driver for the mining sector. But specifically within that, uranium, we have a collection of 17 licenses in and around the Athabasca Basin, which I'm sure your listeners will be familiar with. That's the world's #1 address for uranium mining. We've also, within that collection of assets, there's 17 in total, 5 of which sit within the basin itself. So, very highly prospective. Now, we're at the early stage here. We've just recently put some capital into the business. That was a raise of £2.7 million, which we completed a couple of weeks ago. And what that's going to allow us to do is to really push forward with our exploration program in Athabasca. So when I see you in Boca, by that time we will have put out an announcement which will talk specifically about what we're doing, what people can expect to hear from us, how much we're going to spend, when we're going to report on that, and really set expectations for what we think we can achieve with that asset. Some of it is going to be geophysical exploration, some of it is going to be some early stage drilling, but it is going to be a very exciting time for the company. So that's really the sort of the main exploration focus at the moment. But we also have assets elsewhere. We have a very interesting collection of gold assets in Victoria, in Australia, which I'm going out to see a little bit of next week. We're hoping to effect an IPO there also in the London market of some of those assets. That's something we're going to be talking a lot more about later in the year. People will, I'm sure, will have heard of the Ballarat mine. I mean, Victoria was the global capital of gold mining back in the 1870s, and people say that the best place to explore for gold is under the headframe. And with modern geophysical techniques, we think there's a great opportunity to make major discoveries there. So we'll be talking a lot more about that. We've got a potentially world-class nickel asset in Botswana in Africa. We've completed 2 diamond drill campaigns, and at the moment I'm very much engaged marketing that asset to potential strategic joint venture partners, and we also hope to be talking a lot more about that as we go forward. It's a great jurisdiction for mining, and obviously it's a commodity that the world needs a lot more of. Some of the other assets that we talked about, and you mentioned the investment banking model. We've IPO'd quite a few of our assets through a vehicle called Golden Metal Resources. That's an IPO we completed again also just a few weeks ago, and that's tungsten, gold, and some other metals in Nevada in the US, and I know that's an area where your listeners will be very familiar. So that's just come to market, and we're certain that's going to add a lot of value. Now we maintain a 62% holding in that company, and we're locked in there. So we're going to be alongside investors in gold and metal, hopefully making a lot of money. So there's a whole lot of other stuff which hopefully people will be able to see in our material. There are 12 projects and investments across our portfolio. So we're covering uranium, as I mentioned, nickel, rare earths, platinum group metals, gold, silver, and the silver, which is another thing I know that the All Investment Media followers are interested in through you, and we want to be talking a lot more about our ambitions for silver as well, again, which I hope to be able to cover more when I see investors in person in July.
I think what will be important for our audience is to understand that really by investing in Power Metal, that they're investing in a process by which a portfolio will be built, and built at a pre-IPO basis. The lovely thing about creating the ground floor is that you're certain to get in on the ground floor. And what has always attracted me about the publicly listed merchant banking model is that somebody can buy diversification on the way in, but also potentially the ability to participate in spinoffs as they come to occur. You, in effect, become a member of a club. And I certainly benefited over the years with Dundee, not just because of the share price appreciation of Dundee, but also with the ability to participate in many of the companies that they germinated and spun off. So I look forward to being able to repeat that success with you all. If you could tell us something about the catalysts that you see, the things that you hope to have occur in the next 12 to 18 months, so that people will have some benchmarks to measure you by.
Yes, absolutely. And going back to my point earlier on the uranium, something I really want to get across to investors is that the amount of news we're going to be generating from that portfolio. I think we're set for a great run in the commodity price. We're starting to see some of the share prices moving quite substantially. We want to be a part of that, and I want to get people focused in on what we're achieving there. Now, does that lead to a transaction? We may spin out some of the portfolio. We've talked about that. To give investors the opportunity to take a pure play bet on uranium. I mean, at the moment, if you buy Power Metal, you're buying uranium, but plus, quite a few other things. There may be good demand for a pure play exploration company in the UK, and we're examining our options there. Again, something I'll be able to talk more about when I see you in person. So there's a catalyst there. There are also the other deals that I mentioned. We've got a collection of assets in Australia, not the gold assets I spoke about earlier, but a group of platinum, rare earths, lithium, and a little bit of uranium in Western Australia in the Northern Territory, which we've parceled into a company called First Development Resources, which we're actively marketing at the moment as an IPO. So I'll be talking about that in Australia next week. We're seeing some investors there. But also we're actively engaged talking to investors in the UK and elsewhere on that one. So investors can look forward to seeing that come to the market, and this will translate directly onto our balance sheet. And this goes back to your point earlier about the merchant banking model. What I like what investors to think about is that if we take a pound of your capital, and if you think of it in terms of the shareholder equity, and then you look at it in shareholder equity per share, in other words, you take account of dilution in capital raises, I think we can show a fantastic progression in what we've done to your shareholding over the years. I mean, again, we're going to put more of this into our presentation materials, and we hope to be talking about it in person in Florida. But how we actually look at our balance sheet and how we seek to add value. So catalysts are going to be the uranium market picking up and the exploration work we're doing there. The IPO of First Development Resources, that's also in short term. Slightly longer on from that will be the new Ballarat Gold Corporation, the Victoria Gold assets I mentioned, and also hopefully a strategic joint venture arrangement for our nickel assets in Botswana. So lots of big news events that are going to be coming up, and I hope people will want to learn more, and they can certainly contact me directly, and they can look at our material on our website. It's powermetalresources.com, where I think we've got some great presentation materials, which obviously we're constantly engaged in updating because things change rapidly at Power Metal. So and when we see you, as I said, we hope to talk a lot more about seeing some of these events come to maturity.
It's important to note, too, that Power Metals trades both on the AIM market in London and the U.S. over-the-counter bulletin board. And all of this optionality, all this progress occurs in a $23 million U.S. market cap wrapper. Any success, I would suggest, in the Appalachian, in the Athabasca Basin, could cause that share price to be a multiple of that. We've enjoyed ourselves a lot of success in the Athabasca Basin, and it's important to note that the wrapper with all this opportunity only has a $23 million U.S. market cap.
Yes, that's right. I mean, look, I think that, well, I would say this, wouldn't I? As a CEO, I do think the shares are undervalued. But, if you look at our asset value on a per share basis, I mean, the last reported figures, were, roughly around the current market cap. So, we've got our interim results coming out at the end of June. Again, those will be live when I see you, and I think we'll be able to show again on that progression in our balance sheet and our asset value, and I certainly think that will highlight that valuation that you mentioned.
Sean, thank you very much for the hard work that's gone into creating Power Metal Resources, and thank you too for your sponsorship and appearance at the Natural Resources Investment Symposium in Boca Raton. As we say here, welcome south.
Thank you very much. I'm greatly looking forward to it. Look forward to meeting you in person. Thanks, Rick.